Well, we continue with the broadcast this morning and taking a look at the murder of Eldorado Park community activist Ayob Mungalee. And once again, the focus is on gun violence in South Africa and the criminal syndicates that are operating drug dealers. And this is a country that is riddled with crime. We've seen, even with the State of the Nation address, we've seen the police minister, Becky Cele, coming under fire, always arriving at the scene after the crime has been committed, and there have even been calls for his resignation. And this is sadly the state of South Africa, where even recently we've heard about millions of calls to 10111 that were unanswered by the call center that is dealing with the 10111. Now, this is the state of this country, and in a total state of lawlessness, close to about 80 or 90 murders that are taking place. We've seen some high profile killings lately as well. And Ayob Mungalee, a man who is described as someone who was very vocal in his area and also a selfless individual who put the needs of his community first. And we are now talking with community activist Dereleen James about this senseless and this brutal murder of Dereleen, of Ayob Mungalee. Dereleen, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes, our hearts actually go out. Our condolences go out to all who have been associated with Ayub Mungalee, his family, his friends, the community that relied so heavily on him. And the point I had made is he was a selfless individual who put the needs of his community first. What can you tell us about Ayub Mungalee, Darlene?
I can tell you that this was a very vocal person. He was unapologetic about what needed to happen in Eldorado Park and how he felt about the crime in the area. He took on, there's some clips on SABC where he actually took on these dealers, head to head, and he actually mentioned their names. He was really determined on addressing crime in the area. He spent most of his days engaging community, finding out what their problems are, and he was in the middle of everything that was happening right now in terms of the many killings and deaths in Eldorado Park. So we didn't work on the same team, but we had the same objective, and that was to build a community of crime.
And just looking at the community, and what has the reaction been in the community when they learned of this brutal murder of Ayub Mungalee?
I think we just saw, I think we all just in shock. I mean, we usually get these messages about, the boys, from the different gangs, and eventually someone will say, no, he was from this gang or that gang, but never just an activist. Never activists, never over all these years that we've been doing, none of the NGO heads were killed and murdered. So we're not sure what to think about this. Yes, there is a sense of fear. Does this mean there's a new target, group, or what does this mean? So that's where we're at.
Yes, and for someone like yourselves, and obviously you also being a community activist, how easy or how difficult is it for someone like yourself, or even the late Ayub Mungalee, to work under the conditions that you people find yourselves in?
It's very difficult. I think number one, we have a lot of pressure from our family. Our families at every other day tell us, we need to hang up our gloves, we need to call it a day. But you look at the few of us that's around, and I sometimes just hope and pray that more people will become active in their communities so that the spotlight isn't just on a select few. If we can have more South Africans and more people speaking out against the injustices and the social ills in our community, there'd be less, threat on our lives. But because it's just a few of us, sort of we are highlighted in every sphere and every space, it makes it a bit difficult.
I'm sure it does, but also at the end of the day, you require not only support from the community and not only getting more people involved from the community, but it is also about the authorities. And the state of lawlessness to a large extent is right on the doorstep of the authorities, the police services, the Minister of Police, and we've heard, although Gauteng Police saying that they've launched a manhunt for the suspects who fled after the shooting. Is that enough, Dereleen? And just your experiences in dealing with the authorities. Are they serious, especially in an area like yours in Eldorado Park, where we know gangsterism is a major problem, drug dealing, drug abuse is more like a pandemic sometimes in your part of the world.
You're right. It is a pandemic. There's no getting around that. And when you say manhunt, we've always seen these statements released shortly after someone was gunned down and murdered, saying that a urgent and speedy manhunt has been launched. But we never see the results of these manhunts. We never hear about the convictions. We never hear, sometimes, yes, on the odd occasion, we will hear, when there's enough community pressure that a group of people were arrested. But that's the end of it. 2 days, 3 days later, the same names of the same people that were arrested, they would be back on our streets. So there's no synergy, and this just so shows the disconnect between SAPS and the NPA.
Well, that is a one issue, and also looking at the police services and always looking and talking about stakeholders, talking about partnerships with the community. And we see that there are many community policing forums, CPFs, in many of the areas working together with the police. So, on the one hand, they are looking at the partnership, but also what is important is to find that when it comes to critical issues, when it comes to where law enforcement really needs to get their act together, this is where that partnership counts, and this is where the community and activists, CPFs, are looking at the police that, listen, when we need you most, you need to be here for us.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why we were advocating for the removal of our station commander. Exactly what you were saying. There needs to be synergy. There needs to be a working relationship between all spheres, crime combating spheres, which is your community stakeholders, and which is your SAPS, which is your CPF. For as long as there's no synergy and working together in that space, we're also not going to see much change. So if you have station commanders who believe this is my station, I will police this area, as I see fit, that's not the attitude we need in communities. We need to have open door policies where there's a flow of communication so that we can prevent these crimes from happening.
Well, Darlene, our heart really goes out to you and the community of Eldorado Park, and also to the family of Ayob Mungalee. I know it's not easy to deal with the situation and to cope with it. But yes, we pray that the Almighty give you strength, and everybody else and the family as well, at a time like this. And we just pray that for our safety, for the well-being of our communities, our families, our children, and hopefully we can get to a stage where we can feel a bit more safe and secure in the areas that we live in.
Yes, and thank you so much for giving our community a voice. It's all these different opportunities of hope that we need to tap into, and media plays a great deal. So thank you so much for the role that you play.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, Darlene. All the best to you. Take care.
Much. Bye-bye.
Dereleen James, with us this morning, community activist, and this comes as a result of the brutal murder of Eldorado Park community activist Ayob Mungalee. The time is just headed for 9:53. We're going to go for a quick break, and we come back, and we're going to end off the broadcast this morning looking at Al Aqsa Week.